Hey boys and girls, this is Mr. Resch with your second Core Plus lesson. I thought I'd do a review of lesson 1, which was how elections work and the difference between primary and general elections. In our spring of 2020, we had a primary election for the Democratic Party candidate. Individuals such as Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren all ran to become the Democratic nominee for the Democratic Party in this year's 2020 presidential election. Typically, primary elections are held in the spring to select a single candidate, all right, for a political party. If this doesn't happen, think about having two candidates that are Democrats, all right, plus, I should go like this, 2 Democrats and then 1 Republican in a election. What can happen is these 2 Democrats over here each get votes, which kind of splits the votes. Yet the Republican over here gets the votes for the Republican Party and anybody who likes them. Okay, what can happen is this person can get fewer votes than these 2 combined, and yet this person can win the election. So the primary election is to narrow it down to 1 in 1, one candidate, one primary candidate for each political party, and thus obtain or gather all the votes for that political party or anybody else who supports them. All right, so primary elections are very important. Now, we probably remember about 28% of people that were eligible participated in the primary election. This is because mainly of lower interest and lower motivation. People think that it doesn't count. It does count. It counts to put that one person on the ticket in November for the presidential election. There's also far less advertising. So people aren't seeing things to encourage them to go out and vote as often, and they're not being bombarded by Twitter and internet ads and newspaper ads, whatever it might be, even TV ads, to go encourage them to vote like they are in the November presidential election. Let's talk about the general election. The general election, as it says, is the election that determines the actual winner for a political position. In this case, this year, it's the presidential election. The winner typically is from one of the major parties, Democrats or Republicans. It's not often that an independent wins, okay? And that's because the independents are such a small group versus what would normally be considered the Democratic group and the Republican group. There's so many people that like those types of values, and there's fewer that like those independent values, okay? One other thing, remember the goal of a primary election. The goal is to give people, you and I, you later on in life when you're 18, the power to select candidates being on a ticket or a ballot, all right? Before 1920s, this wasn't the case. Whoever was in charge of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they selected whoever they wanted. And the people did not have a say, okay? So since the 20s, actually 100 years now, people my age, your parents and guardians, are able to pick who represents them as a Democrat or a Republican on election tickets. I hope that makes sense, boys and girls. Core Plus 2 lesson will follow. Good luck, and as always, if you have any questions, let me know.